this is God's way of helping you remember what you're capable of helping you remember who you are and the magic you hold, and that you don't need to hang on to anything external for safety.
If you're ready to discover hidden wisdom and power deep within, learn how to lead from your heart and soul, and have a direct experience of the energies of life with your own body as the portal, you're in the right place. I'm your hostess and feminine embodiment coach, Michelle Lynn. I'll be your guide as we explore together what it means to fall in love with your own aliveness and how to enter more deeply and intimately into life itself. Welcome to the Feminine Mystery School podcast. If you're just tuning in, welcome to Mapping the Descent, our journey into the dark nights, underworlds, and liminal winters of the soul. This series isn't for the faint of heart. It's for women being torn open by initiation and called to step beyond the old ways. Today, I'm sitting down with my good friend Rosa Santoyo. She's a witchy creative mentor and somatic healer whose business became her crucible. In this conversation, we journey with her through the unraveling of roles, relationships, and everything she thought held her, into grief, resistance, and the void. From there, into a reclamation of body, voice, intuition, and power. Together, we witness how our grief holds medicine, how our edge births clarity, and how true leadership for this time arises from the darkness. I invite you to listen with tender courage. You might find a mirror of your own reclamation here too. Welcome, Rosa Santoya. I'm so excited to speak with you today in this podcast series that we have going on about the descent or dark night of the soul or underworld journey or winter. There's some different characterizations that talk about a similar type of thing that happens when we go through a death and rebirth process. So welcome, Rosa. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Rosa, and I am really coming here through this lens of the dark night and business in particular. And the reason I'm coming in with that is because that's what I guide people through. That's what I'm holding. I have not just foundations and frameworks, but a lot of somatic and spiritual experience to hide to guide other witches and healers in this process of here's what it looks like to get your message out in the world. Here's what it looks like to do that sustainably. And here is what's possible when you allow that for yourself to touch and change lives. So I also recognize the depths and have been in the depths of what that process looks like. So I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yeah, and that process can sometimes activate us into an underworld journey.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
certainly experienced that myself, and I know you've shared with me that business for you is not just building a business, but it's like this alchemical spiritual journey that invites our soul into evolution. Curious to hear more about that from you during this conversation. But let's start with: have you experienced what you call a dark night of the soul or an underworld journey? And how do you call that? How do you make sense of that? How do you understand what that was for you?
Yes, I've been through so many. The one that stands out the most, and this is actually very related to having gone into an entrepreneur life business process, was when I opened up a healing space here in Austin, where I live. And what I thought wanted to be created was still hanging in like old paradigms and versions of myself that I couldn't hold, and what came with that, and I can go into this in much more detail, but want to give you kind of the high level of it became an unraveling of my most intimate long-term relationship. It became an unraveling of, the business itself, and it became a complete destruction and unraveling of me, of who I thought I knew, who I thought I was. Prior to that healing space, like, I had worked in tech startup spaces and, created this life for myself that was really rooted in, like, conditioning and, all the things I thought I should be doing, and I really thought going into this space, and I'll invite dialogue here because I can really respond to kinda your curiosity and questions you have, um, a little more deeply, but what happened for me is as I made this shift from already one unfolding, so, like, that had pre-dark nights, or what I like to think of, a term I've heard is, like, the pre-tragic, the tragic, and the post-tragic, and this was, there was lots of, tragics happening in there, and lots of little tragedies, but what I thought wanted to be created when I really got laid off from, like, these startup businesses and going into this healing space was not it at all, and what I didn't realize at the time and that I can recognize now was really the first invitation, the first doorway to actually falling into a dark night. And I'll pause there because, yeah, I'm curious just what curiosity you have in there.
Yeah, I think that's been a theme in these conversations is that women are living in a way that is how you're supposed to and the way that we should and the way that our parents or school or our religions told us. And we're going along kind of fine in that and things are kind of fine and there's some level of everything is going along swimmingly. And then there comes some kind of a moment. So I'm curious for you, was there a catalyst that launched you into this? Did something externally happen or did you choose something that set you off on that path? Yeah, did that seem like it just happened to you? Did it choose you or did you choose it? What was the catalyst there, if there was one?
Yeah, that's a great question, and, God, I love it because it's so juicy, and I can say so much to what that actually looked like that I think will be really helpful for people in hearing. And I had been, like, on this spiritual path for some times. Like, I will say, like, the first door that opened for me was, like, in 2017. I started a yoga teacher training. That was door 1, and somewhere within that, I could already feel it in my body, things like, before people were using the word somatic, I was having, like, trauma move in my body, but nobody putting words to it, and that in itself being, like, a little dark night of, like, "Oh, shit," like, why am I crying right now? Like, what is happening? And, that started to break me open a little bit more and a little bit more, and before I knew it, and this is where I'll get to that catalyst moment, that turned into, like, me reading tarot, like, the yoga training is when I was first introduced to tarot. And that started to open up more of doorways of like, here's another spiritual practice, here's another witchy door, here's another thing. And within that period, I was still working at these corporate offices. And so now I was finding myself in this dynamic of here's the muggle world I'm living in, here's the door that wants to open. And just feeling like I didn't quite belong in either one yet. I was just being kind of pulled between both worlds. And so in terms of that catalyzing moment, I will say it kinda just happened to me, and so there's, like, a whole story there, right, of so I started reading tarot, and then, that made me think, like, "I really wanna go be a tarot reader. I think that's what I need to go do," and so I started kind of following that, and I pulled some cards one day, trying to, like, in this whole process as I'm getting pulled, in this tension of this double life I'm living at this point, of these 2 worlds I'm living in, um, I start going to the cards to, like, answer these questions for me of just, like, "What do I need to do next?" Like, I feel lost. I'm a faceless. I don't know who I am anymore. I thought I wanted to go one direction. I'm completely being pulled in a different one, and I was invited by the cards. This is what it was like the Hierophant, the devil. This is one of my favorite stories to share, actually, was the Hierophant, the devil, and the magician. And what dropped in that moment was, "You need to go find a mentor on Instagram." Which is like that's what dropped in, and I was like, "Oh, okay, wow, that was really loud." That was like, okay." So I'm kind of sitting with it laughing a little bit because 'cause I'm like, "How did that just happen?" And, long story short, I ended up, like, getting an ad showed to me, and it was, this woman who teaches, modality called body temple dance, and I, ended up going to, like, this free masterclass she offered, and this is also, like, she's a great example of the sustainable process that I offer for witchy healers, but she had this masterclass, and, I went, and it was the first time I was held in a circle to be with, meditate, and completely hold and dance with my inner child, and I was just, like, unraveling through that whole, hour-long thing, just, like, tears pouring out, realizing all the things that needed to change in my life, still hanging on for dear life to the life I had, because it's like, well, if I let go, where do I go? Like, I have no idea where to go from here. And so as all this energy is moving through my body, clearly I'm being called into something different. I am just like just grasping. I'm just like, I can't let go. And so here's where we get to the catalyzing point of I just get laid off. I get completely kicked out of my life. There is no other option. I'm like working at a startup. It's like this period a few years ago where a bunch of VC companies were just calling the shots and telling people you got to let people go. We might go into a recession. It was like pre-pandemic, it might have been mid-pandemic actually when this was happening. And I get laid off. And luckily, I have a severance package. I actually think I manifested some of this because I knew like I wanted to get out of there. And I was like, well, I only want to get out of here if somebody gives me a bunch of money to do it. So, thank God that's what happened. They offer me a severance package. I'm out of there. Know I can't go back. Like at this point, so to add, at this point, I'm like I gone to this master class. This particular mentor really spoke to me. She had like an immediate paid offer, which is funny how well this aligns with like the business stuff that I'm here to teach. But she has this offer for like a 4-month container of love, sex, money, power. And I'm just like, I don't even know if I want those things, but it's something. Just get me through that door. I need to go somewhere. And in those 4 months, I mean, this is like when things are continuing to unravel, I can just feel so much in me, in the way I see the world and the teachings that I'm hearing. This is a bhakti yoga tantric teacher, and there's like so much wisdom in Hindu philosophy that really helps you recognize the illusions you're holding on to and listening to the whispers of what wants to move through you. And so, where am I going with this? So I get laid off and end up in India and like sorry, I've got I follow this teacher, so, like, I'm just like, "Okay, I'm doing her 4-month container." I get out of that, her and her partner have, like, a guided trip to India set up, so I leave for 2 weeks, I go to India, I come back, and I'm like, "I'm gonna open up a spiritual healing center." That's what I'm gonna do. And so I'll kind of pause there because I know I'm saying a lot, and there's just so much more to the story. But I will say, to kind of speak to your question, is that became one of several catalysts of like, and again, this was what I see now as like Kali energy of like, this big, loving, fierce mother who wants to come in and just fucking drives her sword through that of just like, look, you're just not doing that anymore. You don't get a choice right now. This is what's happening. And I find often that is what a dark night first looks like is you're left with no other options. And it's not by any choice you made. I mean, I think on some unconscious level, we are making those choices. Our soul is making those choices for us. But in the moment, it feels like you don't have a choice. This is it. Somebody removed the bell and said, "Okay, nothing for you to hold on to. Let's go."
Mhm. Yeah, I'm really curious to tease apart this theme a little bit more because what you're speaking to is really a hand of the divine or the hand of something greater than you is moving you or is moving the ecosystem that you're in to catalyze you forward. So it's not that you chose it, it's almost like it chose you. But you're also speaking of this theme of resistance. And so I'm curious to hear you. That's the one thing I would love to hear you really tease apart is what role do you feel like how does resistance play into this whole thing? Because it sounds like what you're saying is I could feel something moving, but I was still in resistance around it. And then the hand of something greater than me moved in and said, stop fucking around.
Yeah.
We are now catapulting you very rudely in a different direction. So I wonder, like, I'm wondering right now, is there a way that we can more flow with those energies that we don't have to feel the sword of Kali falling upon us in a sense? Or is that just an inevitable part of this? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's coming through for you as you hear that?
A absolutely. Yes and yes. Yes, there's wisdom that can be shared on how to be with it, and yes, sometimes you're just in it and there is nothing to hold you. This actually really inspires the work that I'm doing because I think there is So there are so many of us who've gone through these periods that can actually help others navigate that resistance, or not even, I wouldn't even say navigating the resistance, navigating the swirl, the tidal waves that come so you're less resistant, but we don't have a lot of those spaces. We're having more and more of those spaces now. I know the period where I was in, I didn't have too much of that. Thankfully, I was in a container with this teacher who helped, that did help hold it. And so what do I have to say about resistance? I think resistance comes when you have absolutely no one to show you the way, when there's nobody who can give you the words for your experience. I kind of think of like a child and a mother, maybe a mother who's not so present, right? You're gonna have, if when your mom's not very present there to hold your hand and guide you, you're gonna have a lot more fear, a lot more like, I don't know if I want to go through that door. I don't know, like, what I want to do next, because you have no one there to say, hey, I walked this path. You're gonna be okay. Like, maybe we don't have all the answers right now, but here, let me help you find the words of what this might feel like in your body, of what you might be thinking right now, because I think we're all human, and we follow the same human thread within how we engage with our experience. And so, and I don't know if this really answers your question, but I do think I think my resistance came from it's like a three-part thing. Obviously not knowing what was gonna happen next, and I think that just creates natural resistance in anyone, right? Um, and then not having all I wanna say all the framework for, like, how does one go about meeting this edge? And then this leads me to, like, another sort of contradictory point of view of, like, sometimes not having that holding too is in itself wisdom, because you're forced to face parts of yourself that you may not have otherwise faced. And I think I was really invited into this period several times, even after that one catalyst of like, look, Rosa, you have all these patterns you keep catching yourself in, and the only way you're gonna meet those edges is to be with yourself and meet those, like, be in the tears, be in the grief of it, be in the isolated, no one is holding me right now, because that's the only true way you're really gonna meet yourself. And so, it's not pretty. It's not, and I'm sure you know. Um, and so it's kind of like this, yeah, very, very contradictory thing of, the resistance I think is often necessary because it helps you meet those edges of yourself. And I do think there are some very beautiful, wise ways of holding that, and that's why we have mentors and teachers and healers. And I will say in my latest unfoldings, because I feel like I'm still like a constant, like little catalyst happening even now, the only way I've been able to stretch further and meet more of those edges, and now I have so much wisdom myself to hold these, to navigate when things are uncertain. But the only reason I've been able to expand is because I'm in containers with other teachers and wisdom holders who can give me the words of, these very parallel phases. Like, I think of the tragic, tragic, and post tragic, which also very much parallels this more alchemical, like, albedo, negredo, rubedo, experience. And I think when you start when you start hearing those whispers of wisdom, it everything starts to feel a little more okay. Like, I am definitely in a place now, like, I even right now, in this present moment, a lot of things in my life are moving around and unfolding, and I've been able to be much more present in it, and not the same Rosa from quite a few years ago who was like, "Oh god, what do I hold on to?" But I'm like, "Oh god, oh god, oh god, okay. If there's God, oh, otherwise, I'm gonna be okay." And so,
I feel you. I feel you. And I think one of the things that we're speaking to in the resistance is because there is a big death happening.
yeah.
And big parts of us don't want to die. They don't want to let go. And you can see that in a lot of the mythologies about the descent or the underworld journey is this sense of being ripped into the underworld, into another world. Like we see it in the Persephone myth where she just gets like kidnapped into the underworld by Hades. And even in modern portrayals of that, like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, how she just gets swept into this tornado, uncontrollably swirling in wind and cows are flying by. Nothing makes sense
Absolutely.
because you're just tumbling through the air. It wasn't something they chose. It was just like the hand of God moved in to pull them into this experience. So it makes sense that we'd have a lot of resistance around that. And I hear part of what you're saying is like, if we can allow that, be with those things and allow them to happen, then that's a way to ride this. And which is one of the reasons I really wanted to have this conversation, because I think we do, it's just part of the human experience that we go through these expansion, contraction, death, and rebirth. But I think what's happening, what I'm seeing in the collective right now, is a lot of people are going through these soul initiations where they're really waking up and coming to this certain level of consciousness. And I know I went through that. I know a lot of the women that I'm speaking with are maybe in the process of that. And a lot of women like you have maybe gone through it and kind of come out the other side in a sense. And I feel like if I had a map, that's why I wanted to call this mapping the descent, because every descent is going to be unique. And there's no way that you could set it out and be like, okay, this is going to happen next. And I think when we tell enough of these stories, we start to feel the geography of what this is, what this experience is in a woman's life, of not just expanding a little bit and stepping into a new version of self, but like a whole reworking of our consciousness, or like soul's evolution, which I think is, I don't know, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this too. I was going to ask you this more towards the end of the conversation, but we're here now. So let's go into it. Is the bigger context of this conversation in the collective experience that we're going through on this planet right now? Why is this, do you think this is an important conversation for us to be having? Like what are your thoughts on that,
Yeah,
Brad?
absolutely. I can see a collective spiritual unfolding happening. It's just happening, and that is, part of that energy of like the divine swooping in, the mother swooping in, as above, so below, and it feels very alive and real. And so these conversations are that much more important because there's a lot of people who don't quite yet know how to navigate it, who can feel it in their own bodies, in their own awareness expanding, and are still getting caught in old systems, old structures, because they just don't know where to go. And I think the more we have these conversations, the more opportunity we create for people to know, "Hey, you can come here. Come over here. We'll hold you. We've got you."
Mhm.
We've so we have those of us who've, I feel like, I don't wanna say, like, selected, but, like, who were initiated, might be a better term, quite a few years ago, and we are meant to be these guides and these Sherpas for, um, creating more spaces like this where we're having these conversations, because there's just more and more unfoldings of it. There's more people like, "Oh, okay, I'm feeling this in me too." When I talk about feeling this in me, I wanna speak to this too about how, in the body this experience is, which I don't think we talk often enough about. Like, I think we have a lot of theory, a lot of myth, a lot of story behind it, which is absolutely beautiful. It gives us the words, but when we're able to bring it back into the body and recognize the experience our body is having through these processes, I think, one, allows us to find the resources that will help us maintain safety throughout it. And again, it's just another beautiful way. I think it's like the divine feminine is embodiment, right? And I feel like we're navigating a lot of that too. A lot of feminine energy that has been long and long oppressed, like wanting to move through our fields as women, our fields as a society, in a very patriarchal one at that. And that embodiment piece is just becoming so much more important. So, yes, like, to all these conversations, I can see, like, on a collective level, something is opening, and we're gonna need more and more people guiding and saying, "Hey, I've been there, I've got you."
Mhm. Yeah, I hope if you're listening to this too and you feel like maybe you're in a dark night of the soul or some kind of weird evolution or initiation that you can't quite make sense of, that maybe you find yourself somewhere in these stories. And so with that in mind, maybe let's continue. I want to hear a little bit more about your story. At what point did you realize I'm in a dark night of the soul?
Yesterday, I'm tempted. I was like, "Oh, this is what's been happening this whole time." It's been many, many initiations, and at what point did I realize? I was able to give words to it a lot more eloquently, when I ended up in this sort of indirect mentorship almost. I was, doing back-end work for a very well-known established spiritual author, Mirabai Starr. A lot of people listening might actually know who she is, and one of her more recent books was, gosh, it's losing the book right now, but it's on the feminine mystics. I can't, like, for some reason, think of the name, but she is a I was very fortunate. She is a well-established teacher of the Dark Knight. Like, she did translations of Saint John of the Cross's Dark Night of the Soul, and that is really where this term came from, and, if for those who don't know who Saint John of the Cross is, he's like a 16th century Spanish mystic, Catholic mystic, and he found himself in the darkest depths when he was taken into, a prison of sorts for being kind of this rebel in religion, and, not to get into all the details there, but, he basically experienced a total disconnection from God, and this was a guy who, like, could levitate. It was, like, pure, like, mystical energy, like, was totally immersed in, like, the beloved's field and energy, and so when he lost that, when he was it was like, "Oh, fuck. Like, what now?" And, so when I started to do so within that story, and this brings me back to my own story, is when I started to find the words of like, "Oh, this is a dark night." Like, and I happened to, be so immersed in this work and with this particular teacher as I was going through my dark night. And, she's also a teacher of, like, beautiful grief work and, like, grief as a spiritual tool for transformation, so it was, like, in my darkest period in my entire fucking life, I landed in the hands very directly with this beautiful teacher of both the grief that comes with dark nights and the dark nights itself. So I think at that point, to answer your question, is when I started to realize, "Oh, that's what's happening. I'm in this period of disconnection." Um, and one way I'd love to share, like, the dark night experience is, like, this is God's way of helping you remember what you're capable of helping you remember who you are and the magic you hold, and that you don't need to hang on to anything external for safety, not even her, not even God, and that's what this period really invites you into. It's like this initiation into meeting yourself more and more and more, and, again, just, this is again why I find it so incredibly important to have these teachers, wisdom holders, us, me, you, who can, help frame these experiences, because if I hadn't had, like, those words in those moments to help me see my experience, I was already losing it. I don't know what would have happened. Maybe I would have, like, completely regressed, gone back to my old life. I have no idea, but I was very fortunate in that sense.
I think many people probably do. I
I
think a lot of
agree.
people go through this type of initiation and they just turn off instead.
Yeah,
Probably nobody here listening, because if you're listening to this conversation,
yeah.
you're already on a catalyst path. But I do think a lot of people just do go back to sleep, and maybe they get another initiation later that they can't ignore. But I do think it's pretty common. And there's so many threads that I want to follow, rabbit trails that I want to follow here. But I want to sum up this how do you know piece, because you talked about, and so for the woman who might be just in this moment of nothing makes sense, how do you know if you're in a dark night? And you mentioned things not making sense. You mentioned the death of the old ways, like not being able to continue on anymore. You mentioned a feeling separate from God or losing that spiritual connection, at least temporarily. Is there anything else you would add to that list?
Yeah, how do you know? It's like when you're falling into the abyss and you've got nothing to hold you. So for me, that really looked like even this actually I think the relationship I had been in during that period that also unraveled through this dark night, which was something it was like toxic patterns and me keeping myself small and all of these things that just needed to go was a great reflection of like me realizing like, wow, I'm in a dark period right now because I could feel like the wisdom was there to shed, and I still wanted to hold on. And it's
Mhm.
like, and I think that's a good indicator, like, when you're noticing, you have the awareness to notice the unraveling. You're like, "Oh, okay. It's shaky." If you're
Mhm.
thinking about the tarot, right, that's what the tower is. It's like everything around you is, like, shaking and falling down, and I feel like it's really important to name that old inner child, even part of you that just wants to hang on to a little bit of safety, even if that safety wasn't good for you, even if that safety was like, "No, we're not doing this anymore." And when you're caught in that tension, if you're listening and if that's what you're experiencing, you're like, "Oh, yes, I feel that pull in 2 directions." I would say that's a pretty good indicator you're in a dark night.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. Inner tension. There's something so real about the Alice in Wonderland myth about how she lands in this completely topsy-turvy world that I think is so resonant for me about how you know if you're in a dark night is kind of like you feel like you've stepped into another world where nothing makes sense in the same way that it used to.
Yeah.
Literally. It's almost like if you would walk into your kitchen to make a cup of coffee the way that you did yesterday and the coffee machine's not there and none of your mugs are in the right cabinet. And
Yeah. Absolutely. It's like you try to go put your shoes on and you're like, "Why don't they fit anymore?" You know? And
yeah.
it definitely feels that way, and I think what you'll find, and I guess this is also, like, if you wanna go test this out to see if you're in a dark night, like, a really good, reality check is gonna be when you try to step into that old life, that old version, that old boyfriend, that old job, and I have friends who keep doing that. They've been in a dark night for a while, and they keep trying to run back into the same doors, and they're like, "Rosa, what am I doing?" And I'm like, "Honey, you gotta go the other direction." Like, you keep trying to go back to the same door, it's gonna keep closing because that's not where you need to be anymore, and so I would say if you're noticing that, if you're like, "Okay, let me text my boyfriend I just broke up with 6 months ago, and that's not feeling quite right," that's not, you're in that period of like, "Hey, we need a shed. This is not a part of you anymore," and that shedding, and you named it a few times quite well, is the dark night. It's like you're
Yeah.
shedding, you're decaying.
I think letting go into usually probably the unknown is one of the hardest parts of going through this because I think that's one of the initiations that a dark night or an underworld journey invites us, forces us maybe into is letting go. Like I get this image in my head. It's like you get into a boat and you sail away from the shore that you've always lived on and always know, but you don't know what the other land that you're going to is or where it is or what it looks like. And it's like that moment when you lose sight of the shore and you know you can't get back there.
Yeah.
You just are in the ocean of I don't know what storms are coming or what sea creatures or where the land is or how far away or what it's going to look like when I get there. We have to let go though
Yeah.
into this unknown space. So, did you feel like you had to go through that? What do you feel about that?
Yeah, the immediate thought was like, let's be real, you don't even know if you're ever gonna find the other land." Like, you really don't know. And I have been in many, many periods of that, my healing space that ended up unraveling along with the relationship. They were this combined thing that was happening, and, I didn't know. I was like, "Well, do I go back to my corporate life?" That's like the old shore I just left, right? I don't know if I'm ever gonna find land again. Like, I might be here in the ocean forever. I don't know. So, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very natural part of it, and I think this is, again, where, I cannot, like, emphasize enough the importance of having people guide you. Like, I think that's where that comes in, is, like, when you have other people to hold you, and I strongly encourage, like, if you're recognizing you're in a dark night period, find the right containers for you, find the right mentors, find the right friends, find the right people that are gonna, um, one, witness you in that without just trying to fix everything around you because they can't, and just be in a connecting wisdom-filled way with you because that's gonna be so supportive as you swim through the water. What it will feel like never-ending water, and there's just no getting out of that. That is part of the process, and I promise you, there is land somewhere that you're gonna
Mm.
find. It's not endless ocean, but it's like you kinda have to experience that emptiness that, being in that water can bring in order to even recognize yourself again, to even and this takes me back again to, like, that body experience. It's like you're being invited into the ocean, into the swimming as a way to kinda come back in, to be with your body again, to be with your outer experience is a reflection of your inner experience, so you're like everything around you is, unraveling as this sort of way to come back in so you can start to notice what else is here. Because I can say this for anybody listening and for even me and you, there is so much more to us than we can recognize, and we will never meet those parts if we're not willing to come back to our bodies.
That Yeah, I also see this personally as a feminine reclamation because I always like to remind women too, you hold these codes in your body. We bleed every month. We have those codes of the liminal space between worlds, between a death and a rebirth, the liminal space, like, between birth and what that space that we walk between one cycle is ending. Now it's the dark moon, the new moon. There's like a void before the new cycle starts. So you already have these codes. They're part of the reason I feel like we go through these is to awaken that in us again. But I'm curious, I have a kind of a two-part question, but I want to drop both questions because I think this interweaves. Did you lose faith? Did you lose trust at all in the process
Yeah.
of letting go, surrendering? And in that, did you lose sight of God, the divine, in that John of the Cross way of like, where are
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I yes, and from in moments, but I think also because I had so many guiding hands, it was never totally lost. That helped me a lot, but it was certainly there. The skepticism was there. The what led me into these unravelings was following that spiritual path. So there was certainly a huge level of skepticism. This was like before I unraveled, right? I'm like, "Yes, follow the divine thread. Yes, I feel it in my body. Yes, all these things." And then I'm like, "Oh, fuck, what is happening?" And so when that "oh, fuck" moment's happening has happened, absolutely. Then it's like, "Wait, God, do you am I delusional? Did you really were you holding me all along? Am I following the wrong thread right now? Like, is there really no God? Is this why my life is unraveling? Because there is no God and I've just been doing it wrong this whole time?" And I'm, like, clearly on the wrong path, and I need to go back to my 9 to 5 job, and I need to go do all these other things because they seem to have something there for me. And, so yeah, to answer your question, I would say it was skepticism for me. That's how it showed up. That disconnection showed up as having complete skepticism in spirituality, in the divine, in what it really had to offer me. Was it really holding me? Yeah. And I'm trying to think of, any other form that really showed up. The interesting thing now, this is what this brings up, is in retrospect, I'm able to see the ways in which that was the divine holding me. I'm able to see that that whole unraveling was God. And what I saw as disconnection was actually God saying, "Hey, I've got you. Just let me." And I saw this very strongly in my intimate relationship that dissolved, because in the moment, it felt like that was one of the biggest griefs of my life, but it wasn't just that intimate connection, it was that it was my first time consciously grieving, drug-free, alcohol-free, disassociative free. So I grieved not just that relationship, it was like I was grieving all the unprocessed grief that I'd numbed away for a very long time. And, where was I going with that? In that experience, it definitely felt like not only was I dying, no one was gonna be there to catch me, not even God. There was no God to catch me. And then what I realized after the fact, and there was, again, this huge I feel like this big Kali energy, and for anyone who doesn't know Kali, I highly recommend looking up the energies of Kali. It is very fierce love. It is a love that's like, "No fucks given. I have to do this, like, for you, into you right now because it's gonna be the only way through, and it's gonna hurt, and you're just gonna have to be with that hurt." And so, when I reflected on that whole situation that left me in that big pile of grief was her. It was her cutting her sword through the things that I had held on so tightly to that really were not working for me. Like, safe they were, a sense of safety out of familiarity and not because, they were actually working. So, yes, to the disconnection, and it like, I think the way what's much more alive for me now is like, "Oh, that's God. What was happening?"
I think it's so hard. Like, I think it's medicine to hear that from somebody who's been through it and felt lost and come through the other side and gone, "Yes, I actually God was walking beside me or holding me through all of that." And when you're in the middle of it and you feel like you're just abandoned by
Yeah.
any kind of a benevolent force, there's this, "Oh, it's happening for you and not to you." And that's great, but when you're really going through the trenches of something that feels like I didn't choose this, what can I even trust? Because it doesn't feel like there's a benevolent hand moving in my life right now. It just feels as though I've been abandoned. And there could be feelings of grief that come with that. There could also be feelings of anger. Like if this is God, fuck you. I don't have anything to do with this.
Yeah.
So do you have any words that you would tell the woman who is maybe in that moment of, I hear you, and there's some level of my consciousness that understands, yes, I'm always connected to God and whatever, and whatever. I don't fucking care because
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I think what's really, really important to name is how much more of myself I've met since then, and how vibrant life feels since that period, how, more embodied I feel, how much wisdom and, I wanna say, color and connection that I experience now. And I think, going back to your question, yes, anyone going through this dark night period, I see you, and there is, again, land on the other side, and not only is there land, it's, like, fucking green and then lush, and there's coconuts everywhere, and it's incredible. Like, it is, and I think that really, I also wanna frame it in this way. I think you meet that beautiful oasis on the other side when you're willing to do the work within that dark night, when you're willing to not only surrender to it, but again, find the spaces that are gonna help you come back to your body, because there's so much to learn in that. It's not just about grabbing onto something and creating safety for the moment. You're actually, whether it's through like a somatic worker or whoever you find that can help you reconnect with your body, you start meeting the parts of you that got you stuck in the first place. You start meeting the parts of you that are needing to unravel for you to reach the other side. So in the moment, you get to find a sense of holding and safety while also unraveling these parts that are actually gonna bring you to the shore that you're meant to meet. So I hope that answers that question. I think where I was going with that is just really painting a picture of what's available, when someone goes through that period.
Yeah, I think I love what you're saying because it's kind of an active surrender. It's an active being with. Like I think what I hear you saying and what feels true for me is that yes, we're kind of letting go. We're just being with this process. We're not trying to fix it, but there's an active component of that, of like almost encouraging the process along.
Yeah, holding it.
Yeah, yeah. So with the kind of moving on to the verdant pastures, did you did that just happen? Did you do something that ended this experience for you or brought you through the other side of this experience? Was that a choice or was that just something that felt like the process completed itself and you came through the other side.
I think when you're choosing this path, the alchemical process is never ending. And so for me, that's what it's been. I have only found myself in new periods of going through the same death, rebirth, but in new ways each time. That's been my experience anyway. It might be a little different for some people. Maybe some people, I think some people do meet like an ending, and now here's what I have to hold. My path might be a little different. I'm just like constantly evolving, it seems. And it's, but I think there's choice in that. I think so. I guess what I want to, the picture I want to paint here is you have choice. And when you're, I love the way you named the active surrender. And I think when you're in the active surrender and each time making a choice, you evolve just a little bit more. And I like almost forgot even your question. Remind me what it was so I can come back to it.
Did you do something to get to the land,
Yes, thank you.
or did that just happen?
Yeah, yes, I continue to work with teachers and mentors that have guided me to go just a little bit further. And I so that, again, that's why I keep like planting that seed. It's like those people are gonna the right people that you feel aligned with are gonna take you a little bit further to meet your own edges. And for me, my edges I found were all in my body. So that's why I keep coming back to that too, of like in order to find the land again, you have to come back inward. Your body is the vessel, your body is the veil, your body is the channel. Like your body holds the entirety of your experience. And so it's so important to come back to that. And I think when you do that, and it's not easy, I think for many of us, like I have a very trauma, like my dad was a drug addict, my parents were abusive, my mom was abusive to me. Like there's so many layers of there's so many reasons for me to numb out and disconnect, and I did for a very, very long time. And so I just want to really hold that tenderly, like for a lot of people, for a lot of us, that is the experience. So when you say come back to my body, it's like, why would I want to do that? It feels terrible in here. And that's exactly why you want to do that. And yes, this is like part of the dark night period where it's gonna feel terrible for a little while, for a long while even. And you're gonna see in each terrible, uncomfortable sensation that you follow with care, with, again, the right mentors and teachers. I wouldn't recommend just doing it on your own. Something new comes through. Like, if you would've told me, like, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, I'd be talking to you right now in, like, this very expressive way that I am now. Like, I would've, like, no, like, I was not. I was shut down. I was disconnected. I could barely, like, say a word and oh, like, it was a very different experience because of all the trauma that I'd been, living with for so long. And but these dark night periods, again, were a way to meet those parts to say, "Wow, here's what my body's holding." And at the more and more I've met those parts, the more something new has opened. It's like my channel, the channel that I am has opened, and I'm like, "Whoa, like, like there's so much that wants to pour through here that I can see, that I can feel, that like I'm very, very connected to the unseen in a very visual way, in a very a deep knowing sort of way that I don't think I would have ever experienced had I not landed in these dark night periods and let I wanna say let my body guide me, but and yes, there's truth in that, but it was having people to help me let my body guide me because I didn't know how to guide it on my own. I didn't know how to swim to the shore. I, like, had no compass. I was, like, sort of spinning in the ocean, you know? So, yeah, I would say that was the key there.
Yeah. Mentorship and support is so important. And I think partly to for many reasons, but one of the reasons you're highlighting right now is to help us reframe, recontextualize those experiences of this feels terrible in a way that we can draw fuel and resourcing and empowerment from, and not in a way that just makes us feel confused and lost and hopeless.
Yeah.
That's what mentorship can give you. It's not going to take away necessarily. It's like a doula being with a birthing woman. She can't stop that process from happening, but she can be there with the woman and help her reframe the experience that she's having in a way that she derives fuel and resourcing and power from.
Absolutely.
And you were talking a little bit, we've got just a couple minutes left, but I want to bring this home with any do you feel like gathered some treasures that you emerged from this experience with, and how do you make sense of that, what you received? Or what was that about for you?
Yeah, the treasures, gosh, there's so many. The one that's feeling most alive right now is the treasure of my own body. That is
Uh,
that's what is feeling like, again, the key, the tool, gosh, the amount of wisdom that our bodies hold is just incredible, and I think for anyone in this period of disconnection, of disillusionment, and grief, of all the things unraveling, like, if I had, like, one thing to offer to say, "Hey, come back home to this," it's your body, and again, that is with total, um, holding and tenderness towards the many bodies that also feel unsafe, that also feel like that's challenging, and I think particularly want to speak to those people of, like, that's even more reason to come home. Your body needs you. You need you. And when you're able to, unravel some of those knots that have been created from all of the experiences you've had, like, the biggest treasure I found is all the fucking magic available there when you untangle.
and what's been possible for you to create or experience or do or have from that reclamation of really what's a big facet of you, your body?
Yeah. Reconnecting with my own value, my own worth, feeling a deep sense of trust within myself and confidence in the choices I'm making, even when those choices often make no fucking sense at all. And trusting that intuitive voice that arises, like, there's you can begin to feel your own truth, and so you start to quiet the voices outside of you, and you can begin to trust in that, and I will say that has been one of the biggest, most profound gifts of, like, that reclamation is, like, wow, I really know what my truth feels like, and just standing firm in that.
Yes, there's a clarity that comes from the felt sense of that moving through you, not
Yeah.
something that you just journaled about or that you read in a book and were like, "Oh, that's a really cool insight," but something that you fucking felt.
Yeah, and you're like, "I just know. I know, and this is what this means for me, and this is how I'm gonna take the next step forward, and, it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It doesn't even have to make sense to me right now, and that is the dark night period too. I think, acknowledging that it's not gonna make sense to you right now, and it doesn't have to,
Or to anyone else.
or to anyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Rosa, is there any piece of wisdom or clarity that you would wanna speak into the middle of the dark night soul experience for anyone who seems to find themselves there?
Find your mentors, find your teachers, find the people that are gonna help you come back home to yourself, not the people who are gonna misguide you, and you will know this is actually your first challenge in trusting that truth. It's like, you will know what I trust you. I trust that you will know what feels right and what doesn't, and when you find those right mentors and teachers, it's gonna go a long way. So if you're in that period right now, like, that is what I am asking you to go do. Go find somebody who can guide you, and that is really what inspires the work that I'm here to do because I think we need more and more of those people. We all have those unique souls we made contracts with here on this earth, and we're not gonna find them if we don't know how. And so if they're not, visible, and so that really inspires the work I do. So yeah, that's what I would love to leave this conversation with is if you're in that period, you don't have to do it alone. You can find containers and teachers that will help guide you and hold you.
Mhm. Beautiful feminine wisdom. You're not alone.
You're not
You're not alone.
Yeah, lean into the web of the feminine. That has been one of the biggest gifts I have also found, and I was somebody who was very estranged from the concept of being with the feminine, who was what very wounded in the feminine, and now I'm just like, "Yes, give me all the feminine bodies to be with." Dude, I love it. Like, there's, there's so much shared wisdom that happens with, you know, feminine being with in the feminine, and we need each other. And if
We
you're in a
do.
dark night, those the world needs you. So please come join us on this other side.
Yes, something is calling you forward. And just to riff on what you just said too, and I think this will bring us home, is it doesn't matter how far along on the path that you are. We can all forget the wisdom that we already have. We can forget the wisdom that we've tapped into. We need to be reminded, and we can lean on other women in our circle, no matter how far along you are, to remind you of that wisdom, the wisdom that you already have in your own body.
Yeah. I will add to that by saying the reason you are in this dark night right now, the reason you are in this process is because you have wisdom and your soul is calling you forward. It's saying, "Hey, we have something to share too," which I think could be really powerful.
Reach the good news, girl. Thanks. Rosa, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom with us. How can people find you if they want to connect?
Yeah, I think the best way, well, you can find me on Instagram. It's at Soma Moon Sanctuary is my handle, where you can just I do little tidbits of both spiritual wisdom and marketing wisdom, and I have a Substack too that I'm a little more active on called Notes from the Path. Or you can do somamoonsanctuary.substack.com, I think.
And we'll put all of that in the show notes so
Yeah.
you can reach out and connect with Rosa. All right, my love. Thank you for being here.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please leave a review. It really does help get this podcast in front of more people. And come check out my offerings at embodiment-alchemy.com. If you're a way shower who wants to fully express your gifts in the world, then Force of Nature is for you. I mentor leaders, creatives, and messengers who are here to dream a new world into being. If you know you're here to lead, but want to do it in a new way that reflects your deepest held values and truths, and honors your feminine being as a source of power in its own right, I can help you. Many times, leaders and way showers feel their insides don't match their outsides. They want more clarity about their gifts and role in the new paradigm. They want access to deeper sources of intelligence and support getting unblocked so they can show up more powerfully. If that resonates, you're exactly the kind of person I do my best work with as a coach. Come check out my bespoke mentorship, Force of Nature, for women who want to move the world. The link for Force of Nature is in the description for this episode, or you can head to embodiment-alchemy.com to find out more.